William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I welcome you to another Two Hats special of community events. Let's look in and see what's really happening.
And good afternoon and welcome to Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with Lerone Landis and the late Patti Fink, who wanted to do a show by ourselves, but I said, no, we're going to have a guest today. And at the last minute, I dragged off the street Portia Cantrell. Portia, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Actually, I had posted already that we were just going to have a show ourselves. And by the way, if you want to know who our guests are ahead of time, we're on Facebook is where we usually post those things. So just look for Lambda Weekly Radio Show is how it got posted originally. I think Doc did that for us. But Portia and I were just talking. I said, hey, you want to come on the show today? So no, Patty, we can't do a show by ourselves. We are incapable of it. And I said, bring Aaron. And I didn't mean that as an insult to anybody. It's just I like talking to Aaron. So what's she doing today? She's so busy that she couldn't join us.
She's listening to the show.
Oh, okay. Well,
she goes, I really like shows when it's just y'all.
Okay, so
I do too.
So Aaron, just listen to the parts where Portia's quiet.
I would say that I like listening to just you all, but then y'all might tell me to leave. So,
well, no, not at all. Welcome, Portia.
Thank you.
Well, I'm glad that the two of you are welcoming our guests. Lerone, you're giving me one of those gestures. Is that better?
A lot better.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Just turned up your headphone. Portia, you have a new project called the Silver Pride Project.
Silver Pride Project, yes.
And why not the Gold
Pride?
Well, it's not new, and I said silver because as we age, our hair turns silver. You know, silver is the new gray. We don't claim gray anymore.
I thought blonde.
Silver. Blonde?
Which is why, well, the last time I had to dye my hair because I didn't want my family to know how old I was, it kind of came out kind of blonde. It just didn't come out right.
No, but Portia's right. Silver is the term now. It used to be like old blue hair ladies. Now we refer to them as the silver fox.
Yes, sexy silver.
Yeah.
And the reason I said new is you've really just incorporated. You have a new board. And,
yes.
So, yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So what's your plan? Obviously, it's not just to, have an occasional meeting and get people out of the house.
Well, it is partly that, but our ultimate goal is to provide an array of programs and services for the aging LGBT community, and that's anyone over the age of 50. And
so that would almost include Lerone, huh?
Well, he's still
almost,
like a little baby.
Yeah, not quite.
Yeah,
still got a few years.
He's getting there.
I'm getting there.
When they send you your AARP card on your birthday when you turn 50,
oh, wow.
That's the best. Yeah, that's what happened to me.
Yeah, pissed me off too.
Oh, they hunted me down for like 4 years. Seriously,
really?
Yeah.
Oh,
my father got me my AARP card as a birthday present. Thanks.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you, Dad.
Wow.
You put him in the home.
Josh just said he put him in the home after that.
Sure did.
He sure did.
So, Portia, after we put you in the home...
Yes.
Assuming there's a home to go to, be put into.
And actually, that's one of the things what we want to ultimately have is a home for us older gay people. We want some place where we can be old and free in who we are. Not have to worry that the homophobia that we face out on the street, that we're not reliant upon those people to take care of us. We want someplace safe for us to be who we really are as we get older.
A lot of times, or prior to marriage equality, we would hear about LGBT couples being separated when they're placed in a home. Now that we've had marriage equality for around, 3 years now? Do you know if that has changed a little bit? Have you heard any stories or?
Well, you hear all the time, or at least I hear all the time, about couples who want to go into assisted living, but there are all these issues that, we can't do that. Some people might find it offensive that two same-sex people are in the same facility, are in the same room, and even not just in assisted living, but in senior communities. For some reason, they think it's just wrong. Maybe it has to do with the fact that a lot of these places are funded by people who are religious or...
when my father went into memory care, half of the place, there was roommates. So why would it be odd for two men to be sharing a place? I don't even get that.
Yeah. Because those two men may and probably will have sex.
And I get that, but the door is closed. Who's going to know and see it? But my point is, a lot of them had roommates. So...
Right, I see what you're saying.
Two men living together in the same room.
Or two women.
What's the
big deal?
It just... I don't get what the problem is.
It's the ick factor. It's the ick factor. They know that two same-sex people who are LGBT may ultimately have sex in that room. So let's do whatever we can to prevent that from happening.
Maybe it's our generation that's going to change this a little bit. Because, our generation, Portia, is a bunch of loudmouths. We protested the war in Vietnam. We're good at protesting. When they talk about going back into the closet, a lot of people could go back into the closet. Josh, you couldn't go back into the closet since...
I don't think I ever would.
I wasn't either. So I couldn't... The only closet I've ever been happy in is the current place where I live. We walked into this giant closet and said, okay, we'll take it. Because it's nice. It's really big. I wouldn't know what going into the closet even looked like. It's from my nursing home. They're going to have to, in a wheelchair, carry me to Knon every Sunday. Because that's what I do on Sunday. What does going into the closet even look like? What are some of the stories that you've heard from people?
There are actually people who have caretakers, or maybe not caretakers, but healthcare providers that have to come into their homes. They de-gay their homes before these people arrive. They put away the pictures of them and their loved ones, their lovers or their ex-partners. Or they'll put away the rainbow flags. It would take me 3 hours to do that because I have rainbow flags taped to the wall and hammered into the staircase and all of that. But they actually de-gay their homes because you never know what somebody is going to do.
And I understand that on a big level, but on a personal level, okay, so I get rid of the gay stuff in my home. Yeah, I'll pass. Josh standing right next to me when I'm worried about me passing. Josh, no way. You can de-gay your home all you want, and it's going to be like, whew.
Well, I think a lot of people can ignore things that they know to be true as long as nobody acknowledges it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For as long as it takes. I hear stories of people who grow up in a small town in East Texas, and everybody knows they're gay, but they never say that they're gay. And if they were to bring it up, it would be the most awkward, awful thing to take place. But people know, and as long as you don't talk about it, they're fine. What I fear for older people is that paramedic or whoever comes to your home or some other healthcare provider, and it's not that they would refuse you service, it was that they would give you substandard service.
Oh, yes.
And in some way not treat you fully and like not giving, let's just give them half the medication, or let's get, that they would turn their hate and their ignorance into harm, not just refusing to help you or going back to their ambulance and driving away and denying you service, but in some way, or you go to a mechanic and they sort of fix your car. And maybe, that's what I worry about, is that anyone who feels that way about other people and they're providing a service in the marketplace, that they would give you, substandard or harmful service.
Yeah.
And going back to revisit the issue of senior living facilities or nursing homes, I don't know how those things are funded. I don't even know how they're paid for, quite honestly. But by the the clients who live there. But I would assume that if LGBT individuals were part of anti-housing discrimination laws, that would help prevent that. And I know in Texas we're not. On a federal level, we're not. So that's one reason we really need to get that included.
Yes, we do.
It is in the city of Dallas and other big cities around the
city of Dallas. Okay.
City of Dallas, you cannot treat someone. There's a whole fair housing part of the ordinance that protects us.
And that protects you on one level. Federal or state protections have so much more bite.
Right.
That it's important that, even though we're covered here, that we be covered on a bigger level. And I understand what you're saying, but I honestly wouldn't know how to do that, especially what you're saying, Patty, about, everybody knows as long as it's not said. With me, it's been said.
Right.
I can't unsay some of those. I wouldn't know how to undo any of that. And that's not to say that I'm worried about it, on a family level or anything, but on a care provider level, it's worrying.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, so what part of the group do you all talk about planning to avoid this for LGBT seniors?
Well, one thing that we've all done is kind of make a pledge with each other that we're going to look out for each other. We have what we call coffee and convo meetups every Monday at the Oak Lawn Library and every Wednesday at Grauweiler Library. And we have an informal or informal pledge that, well, if you wind up in assisted living, I'm going to check on you. I'm going to make sure. We have gone to some nursing homes, and there's a very real fear amongst people that we know without a doubt are gay, but they don't want to interact with us and let it be known that they're gay. We have more people who are straight welcome us because they feel they don't have anything to fear. I've actually had one woman who, she's, oh baby, I just love you, because one of my daughters is gay, and and even she drops her voice as though just the fact that she has a child that's LGBT is going to make them treat her differently there at the home.
Wow.
Interesting.
I think that it is interesting that there is a generational difference. The last Gallup poll has a tremendous difference between older people and younger people and who's coming out. So here's some stats. The traditionalists, and that's those who were born between 1913 and 1945. Only in 2016, only 1.4% of those people self-identified as LGBT. Mm-hmm. Contrast that in 2016 with millennials. And millennials are those born 1980 to 1998. 7.3%.
Now, part of that difference would be the AIDS epidemic, but not that big a difference.
I think older people, and even if you go to baby boomers, those born 46 to 64. They only come out, they're only numbered at 2.4% of the population because that's how they're willing to come out. There's a lot of baby boomers unwilling to come out because you can't have 7.3 in the young people and say it wasn't 7.3 in older generations, and suddenly there's more gay people among them.
Well, maybe we did a good job recruiting.
We did a good job, but not that good of a job. What we did do a good job of is making it easier and making it more socially acceptable for this younger generation to be out and proud.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. And still, I don't think if you're in the age of born in 1913 to 1945, you're probably not going to change your perspective on coming out. So if you've been out all of your life and you say so, you're probably in that 1.4%. But it would be kind of a leap, I think, at the late stage of your life to start coming out if you've always feared it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. So
I especially if you're telling a pollster, you're telling a complete stranger, where's that information going to go? Who's going to get it? How is that going to impact me? Do I want to tell the government that I'm LGBT? What are the ramifications of all those things? And,
Well, let's just take a quick poll in here. What age did you come out, Patty?
Oh, I thought you were going to poll us about whether we were LGBT.
Patty is.
I would say yes.
No, I'm just curious about that age. What age did you start coming out?
Well, I knew when I was about the age of 5, and I knew I was different. I didn't know I was different in that way. I knew that I was different because I wasn't going to have that Leave It to Beaver family. That wasn't going to be me.
Right.
But I didn't really come out until after I came out, after I left college. When I was
22, 23?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was when I started coming out.
And that's
then,
surprising because you went to Baylor and they're so welcoming to the
Right.
LGBT community.
we had so many organizations on campus you wouldn't believe.
Oh, too funny.
Okay. But then when I came out, I was pretty much out everywhere.
Yeah.
So...
like you, I think I knew around 5 or 6, but I actually didn't really start the process till I was about 18, 19. Slowly telling certain people, so.
And you, Portia?
14, well, born out, I didn't know what it meant really, but I was always the husband and father when we played house, and then, when I got a girlfriend, a real girlfriend that I could say, this is who I want to marry, even though I didn't really, it was just to, get closer to her. But that's when my sister put me out. So I would say 14, 15.
Wow.
Okay, before I go, Josh, how many minutes out of the womb were you?
Not that long.
And I'd say I was finished coming out by 19.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, I remember the reaction on my campus. This was probably the reaction you got too, Patty. I was an RA at the time, and the reaction was, "Oh, good, one of the RAs came out, so we have somebody to send people to." that was your experience on campus, right?
No. In fact, I had a friend of mine. I was in the dorm for the first 2 years at Baylor, and a friend of mine in my sophomore year was put potluck, as people are, potluck in a room with another woman, and who was very, very Baylor, and this woman had been out for a long time, and so her new roommate was like, "Are you gonna hit on me? Because that's not me. That's not who I am, and I don't approve of this and all of this." And she said, "No, don't worry about it. I'm not gonna hit you up." And about a week later, this woman came back to her and says, "Well, why not?"
You know what?
Exactly.
She was all paranoid now, like she doesn't find me attractive.
We need to take a break. Let's revisit this when we come back.
And you're listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3 Knon FM. We'll be back right after this.
This is Rollins Golan, and I'm listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3, and darn glad to be doing it.
And welcome back to Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with Lerone Landis and the late Patti Fink. Our guest is Portia Cantrell. We're just talking about... okay, you're on that.
I was going to say, we're having too much fun today.
Okay, so
before the break, Patty was sharing the story of a woman who was taking on a roommate who was lesbian, and I guess was insulted when she found out that the lesbian wasn't going to hit on her.
When she was all concerned about it at the beginning, And this woman said, "No, don't worry about it. I'm not attracted to you. I'm not going to hit on you. Really, put it. You don't have to worry about that." And then like a week later, she came back and said, "Well, I want to talk about this again. Why not? Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you hit on me?"
Rue McClanahan's favorite episode of Golden Girls, when I interviewed her, we were supposed to talk for like 20 minutes, and 2.5 hours later, because we were doing Golden Girls lines with each other. But her favorite episode was when Dorothy had a friend coming to stay with them, and the friend found, Rue at first was all nervous about it because she was Lebanese, and
I remember that episode.
And then the friend is attracted to Rose. Rose. Much more beautiful than Rose.
Right.
So, yeah.
But off the air, I was just sharing that I've had that experience too. I remember when I used to wait tables, one of the fellow waiters I work with was just like in shock when said, "No, I wouldn't hit on you. Why wouldn't you?" And I think their perception, a lot of them, their perception is, we are just walking sex machines, and that's all we think about. If you're lesbian, if you see a woman, that's all you're thinking about. Doesn't matter how attractive she is or may be to that lesbian, no matter what, you should automatically be wanting to.
Right. Or that even availability is part of your attraction process.
Yeah, exactly.
Like when I talk to straight women, I never even think of them in that way. Because mostly of the time when I meet new people, I don't think of them as, for one, I'm married. But, I just don't go there. I never have. You know what I mean? It's just a bizarre thing, and yet they think that's what we do.
They think that's what we do. I mean, I'm kind of with you, Patty. I mean, even, I'm married also, but even if I weren't, when I came in contact with straight guys, and I knew they were straight, it was just the furthest thing from my mind. Now, if they were cute, I mean, like, oh my God, he's hot or whatever, but it's like, I could say a woman is hot also. She's off the market.
But that's normal, and so
I'm
going to be kinder to a straight guy who is insulted that you don't find him attractive. He just puts you in the category who might find him attractive, and if you do, it's a compliment. And I don't mean it as anything that you're going to hit on somebody or anything like that. It's just a compliment, and you don't find me attractive, and that's insult. I'd rather it be that than aggressive and angry that how dare you find me attractive.
Yeah.
Because that,
of course, I would, prefer that also.
That results in violence, and I think of it as, if it's a normal, healthy person who just is a little bit insulted, he's just a little bit insulted because.
But see, that's a male thing though, because I don't think women, if we really were in a bar, let's say at Sue Ellen's, and a straight woman were in there, and someone were to walk up and hit on her, I don't think, even if she were insulted, she would grab a baseball bat and beat you to death.
Oh, of course not.
I just think we women would do that, and where I think that's a guy's thing. And I've talked about that in LGBT cultural competency classes. And they'll say, "Oh, I would never tolerate a guy hitting on me." And I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean?
What do you mean when you say that? Well, I'd have to defend myself. I'm like, defend from what?
Right.
And so I asked, well, they shouldn't be hitting on me if I'm not interested. And I said, the women in the class, and I say, have you ever been hit on where it's unwanted? Like unwanted advances toward you? And they'll roll their eyes, yes. Like, more than once? Oh, yeah. Do you grab a baseball bat? No. And yet the guys think that way, that they have to somehow get violent. That's a go-to. And I don't think women do at all, because let's face it, straight women, if they're hit on by gay women, they're also getting hit on by straight men. Mm-hmm. And they let that stuff just roll off. And even if they're persistent, it's not to the point where you say, I'm going to beat you up. It's pull a gun out.
I agree with you,
like,
Patty.
Move on, dude.
It's part of that toxic masculinity mentality that says, if I beat up this gay guy who is hitting on me, it will show how manly I am. Right. It'll show I am furthest thing from gay possible.
But the way this started was the guy that you're saying who's insulted, that you wouldn't find him attractive. That's just somebody who's healthy who,
right?
And why didn't you?
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's no.
That's somebody who's
it's
healthy.
comical.
Yeah, that's healthy. I understand who I am. No, I'm not interested, but I want you to find me attractive.
But I tell you, I have a great respect for straight men who can be around a lot of gay men socially, not just
Absolutely.
once or twice, but all the time. They're in the same group, they circulate, they go to dinner, they do all kinds of things, and never once flinch or have a adrenaline moment of worry or have any problem with it.
Right.
They just embrace their
because
their
the
gay
other people in the
friends
group say, "Oh no, he's straight."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's the most secure person inside. The securest men I know.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Securest and really most attractive.
Yeah. Well, that's a part of the attraction.
that's part of the attraction. I agree.
Yeah.
I can tell you, he probably doesn't have a lot of gay friends. Kevin Hart.
Oh, and I was just going to say, he tweeted about somebody, I can't remember who it was, but I think his name was Greg or something, where this guy apparently had a lot of pictures of him on his Facebook page or something. And he said, what the F? This
Here's the tweet right here.
Yeah.
Why does Wayne, the guy's name Wayne, why does Wayne have so many pictures of me on his phone?
Yeah.
What are you, some type of F? What are you, some type of fat F that takes pics of small black men all day?
Yeah.
So, if you haven't heard the story, Kevin Hart, wildly popular comedian, probably one of the most successful comedians around right now. I mean, he sells out stadiums and like a rock star.
It's his prime. I mean, he was around for a while, but he's really brought himself.
He
into
really is. I'll give him those props. And he landed the gig of a lifetime for a lot of comedians, and that is hosting the Oscars.
in 2019.
In 2019. Coming right up in a couple of months. And a couple of days after that was announced, he stepped down because some old homophobic tweets have resurfaced. Now, his initial reaction to the controversy, there wasn't an apology. It wasn't an apology at all. He just kind of laid in bed and all cool and calm, like he was the coolest thing on earth, and basically tried to write it off as everybody else was crazy and why are they searching for negativity.
And I think he also said, like, I'm not going to apologize.
Well, that was the second. And after that he stepped down. I thought that he stepped down on his own. So the next day, he posted a second video where he told how everything went down, and the Academy gave him a choice. They said, you either need to apologize or we can't do this. He chose not. He refused to apologize. He said he was going to stand his ground. So as a result, he stepped down.
Oh, good. Good.
And
I
so,
want Amy Poehler and Tina Fey again.
Yeah, and so then the third, I think the third day, he finally actually apologized via tweet. So it's just like, this is so messed up. I don't even have a problem with, I can embrace and accept an apology for something he did 10 years ago, because throughout all of this, he's been saying how much he's evolved. He hasn't really shown it, but he says how much he's evolved. I can accept that, but when you're refusing to apologize and I'm standing my ground, no, you haven't evolved.
Okay, here's the part of the story that I didn't get. I didn't really know much about Kevin Hart, just whatever, he just wasn't on my radar much. Well, maybe that's it. Defend me, Portia.
You're not old.
Thank you.
You're young and beautiful and sexy.
Yeah, obviously I knew who he was, but I didn't really know much about him.
Right.
Okay, so.
And they're still laughing about sexy. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm just accepting the compliments. Let it. So,
you're not going to go to a baseball.
So I went back. No. So I went back to look at several articles that had some of the old tweets in it that he dismissed as they were just jokes. And I wasn't.
They all say.
Well, I didn't get the joke, and I'm not saying I didn't think it was funny. I'm saying I didn't get the joke.
No, I see what you're
What was
saying.
the funny thing there?
Right.
Right.
Because you know what, I don't get insulted by gay jokes. I'm certainly secure enough in who I am and what I do, and I just don't get overly insulted by those kinds of things.
And I don't either. a good joke is a good joke, and a bad joke is a bad joke, whether it's gay or not. If you tell a good gay joke, I'm laughing hard just as the next straight person. But some jokes just aren't funny. Like one of his tweets that was really insulting said, "Yo, if my son comes home and tries to play with all my daughter's dolls house, I'm going to break it over his head and say in my voice, stop that. That's gay." That's not what's funny about that.
I don't get what the joke is.
Yeah, I don't get what the joke is.
If you're a comedian, because he's a comedian, you're telling jokes that you want people to laugh at, not just go, yeah, that's right.
But politicians do it too. They'll say something awful, something racist or homophobic or, transphobic or something. And then when they're caught and they're held accountable for it, they go up and say, well, we was just joking. No, that stuff's not a joke.
But this is a comedian.
But this is a comedian, and I
who understands what a joke is.
Who understands what a joke is, but I think a lot of times they try and pass off their homophobic jokes as just that. Well, I'm a comedian, I can get away with it, or I should be able to get away with it. But, Portia and I were talking before the show, and, for those of us who's he's been on our radar for a long time, and I definitely know his, I actually like his stand-up. He is funny.
He's in a lot of movies. And
he's been in a lot of movies. I'm not going to take that away from him. But I also knew that he was probably homophobic because I've seen in several interviews where he has said that he'll never play gay characters because of his own insecurities. So that in itself was kind of a cue to me right there.
And most homophobia, the root of it is you're so insecure about who you are.
Exactly.
That you can't accept other people who are different.
Right. I mean, in my opinion, this whole thing could have been handled just a lot better. He didn't apologize for the first two videotape responses to the controversy. He could have just handled this a lot better. And it just tells me, you really haven't evolved.
I totally agree.
Yeah. But those tweets were just so disturbing.
They were.
And like I said, I just didn't get the joke, and I don't know if I'm even explaining that right, but it wasn't that I didn't find the joke funny. I didn't understand what the joke was.
It's the same when politicians claim it's a joke. There's no joke there.
It's bullying. That's pretty much what it is. He would bully his son if he felt that his son was gay. And the same with the other guy, Tracy Morgan.
And, he got in trouble for some homophobic comments also. I've been on Facebook going back and forth with people about this. And it's unfortunate that, here we go again. It's another black man who's making comments like this. He just feeds into the stereotype that black men are more homophobic than the general population. So, and who came out and defended him? Other black male comedians. They're defending him. So it's really unfortunate.
Now, apparently his act is very G-rated.
It's pretty clean. I mean, there's a few profanities, but not that bad. His humor is very similar to Ellen's, actually.
And Ellen uses
she's completely G-rated.
She's completely G-rated.
I've seen her in person.
I would say that Kevin is PG-13. His humor is a lot of self-deprecating humor, a lot about it, experience about him being short and so forth. But no, it's pretty, for the most part, pretty squeaky clean.
So on Saturday Night Live last night, the joke was, there is one other black comedian who's available who has an even cleaner act, and then they show Cosby.
Oh, wow.
Oh, golly.
Wow.
Ouch. That's on our DVR. We're going to have to check it out.
Oh, wow.
Well, what do you think about this report on individual number one that's coming out?
Oh, I think it's amazingly juicy.
Individual number one is the person who lives in individual number one tower in New York.
It's just individual one, yeah.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
And then the filing, what we're talking about is the filings in the Manafort case and the Michael Cohen case, and the Michael Cohen case in particular, where he states that he acted at the direction of and with the help of and the cooperation of individual one. And he says that individual one began a campaign to run for president of the United States that was successful in 2016. So it's Trump.
Well, it could have been Hillary.
Well, Well, I don't think so. But it's been great. And if you've seen the meme with the individual one for Trump Tower, individual one tower, it's just so funny.
Right.
Just so funny. It's Trump. I mean, and he's committed 2 felonies.
It could be Hillary. She ran for president.
It's
No?
not male. Not male. This
Okay, so they referred to this person as he, huh? So that's limiting it, narrowing it down.
But and saying it was successful. That
successful.
A successful campaign for president of the United States in 2016.
Well,
that would be
one thing I think was interesting.
Currently president of the United States. It's Trump.
Oh.
Right. One of the things that they're getting Cohen on is that Cohen directed money to Stormy Daniels and one other person who, in order to keep them from talking during the campaign. And
because it would have hurt them. It would have hurt the Trump campaign.
I don't think it would have in the long run.
I think it would have. I think in the time that it was going to come out, I think it would have hurt him. On the backs of the Access Hollywood tape, all of his own bragging about having bedded married women, all this stuff, I think it would have hurt him. There's no question that it would not have benefited him.
I'll agree with you there. It wouldn't have benefited him, but I don't know if it would have hurt him.
I think
their intent, though, in doing so was not to allow that to hurt his campaign.
Right.
They were doing it to prevent it from possibly even coming.
But the legal part of this is that the money that was spent, even if it didn't come out of the campaign, because it was meant to benefit the campaign, becomes an illegal campaign contribution.
Right.
And his doing this violates
his knowledge
campaign
of
law.
it.
And Trump's direction for directing him to do it.
Well, had Cohen or somebody just done this, it would have still been an illegal campaign contribution. But if you don't know what's going on and somebody else is doing this on your behalf and it's being done outside the campaign, then it's still an illegal campaign contribution, but you're not responsible for it. When you're the one directing it, telling the attorney to take care of this, then it becomes illegal.
In this way and in this amount.
Right.
That's what the 2 felony crimes are. So he committed 2 felonies in order to win the election.
Art of the deal.
Art of the steal.
And what I meant by was it wouldn't have hurt him. I take it a little step back. I don't think it would have hurt him as far as the voters.
Oh,
but
I think it would.
I guess on legal terms, they probably would have had to cease the campaign.
We need to take a break. You're listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3 Knon FM. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with Lerone Landis and the late Patti Fink, and Portia Cantrell joined us in the studio today. We'll be back with more right after this.
Hi, this is Folletta Lil, and I listen to Lambda Weekly. I hope that you will too.
Okay, this is Lambda Weekly, and we're explaining to Pattie why she's wrong.
And I am winning this argument, let me tell you.
Okay, so
I just think you're giving him a lot of credit.
The voters we're talking about.
Yeah, we're talking about the voters.
And I was talking about the fact that the white evangelicals out there who support him, who are substantial in number within his group of support, which is only 26% of the electorate in the country. I think that if it had come out, one of 2 things before the election: one, that he had these affairs, and with these two different people, I think that would have hurt him. And secondly, if it had come out that he had paid them both hush money to be quiet about their affairs with him, I think that would have hurt him with white evangelicals. But we don't know for sure how that would have played.
I think the last time Donald Trump said something where he wasn't lying was when he said he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and he wouldn't lose a single voter.
And that seems to have held up.
And I've had arguments on Facebook recently and over time with different Trump supporters about that. I said, have you ever taken the time to think that through? What he said about you?
Right.
He thinks you're so stupid and so gullible that he could do anything. He could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and you would grovel for him. You would worship him.
And see, Pattie, with this not hurting his voters, the knowledge that he paid off to women that he had sex with, I think it's just that Lerone and I have an even lower opinion of some of his voters than you do.
Probably.
I mean, that's the argument that we're having.
Yeah.
Which
It
is
is.
kind of an odd argument to have. But
How low can you go, right?
And I only say that because, they do follow up, and they have done follow-up interviews with the supporters in the, ever since, the election. And they through everything, they still stand by him no matter what. It's like it's this cult worshiping of him, and it's like nothing will make them not vote for him.
He tells them what to believe and what not to believe. So on Friday, when these filings happened in federal court in the Southern District of New York, where it was disclosed that Trump himself had committed 2 felonies in order to win the election, Trump tweeted out, clears the president. Thank you. This clears the president. Thank you. So a description of a crime becomes suddenly clearing the crime. But that in his world of alternative facts, up is down, black is white.
Right.
and how many of his voters are going to read his tweets?
He's going to read
and
his
never
tweet.
read a newspaper.
Yes, they're never going to investigate on their own or have a thought that came from them originally, created by themselves, ever. Because he's telling them what to think, and that's what they think. They are spoon-fed what to think.
This hypocrisy wouldn't bother me as much if somebody like Pastor Jeffress, who's always at his side, defending him, and he's the greatest, most moral person in the world. If he was just honest and said, well, morally, of course, we have differences with him, but he's pro-life and or supporting pro-life issues and supporting whatever other issues there are. Supreme Court nominees, and if he was just honest about it.
Well, that's why they came up with the term mulligan. He gets a mulligan. He gets a moral mulligan.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know what a mulligan is, lesbians play golf. That means you get another bite at the apple. Mm-hmm. You get to strike, go again. Because that one, let's just forget that stroke. I'm going to put it back on the tee and hit it again. That's a mulligan. So you get like a freebie that doesn't have to go on the scorecard. And, that's what they mean by a mulligan.
Here's another thing that should have been a blatant indicator to his right-wing religious, and I include more than just evangelical supporters. Did you see him at the funeral?
Oh.
He couldn't even pick up the paper and read just one of the most common prayers.
Apostles' Creed.
Right. That just is, whatever your religion is, you can't read it and say, oh, well, I take exception with those values.
And Melania didn't either.
I was just about to say the same thing. Neither did she.
They just stood there.
But the whole idea that, evangelicals don't use the Apostles' Creed, and that's why he didn't do it, because he's such an evangelical. Jimmy Carter was a few, doors down on the same row, and he's a Southern Baptist. I was raised a Southern Baptist. Southern Baptists don't do the Apostles' Creed. And he read it. Rosalind read it.
What my point is, there's nothing offensive about it.
Right.
There's nothing about it that is, if I'm in a church, I'm Jewish, I can read that and not go, well, what are they saying? What a horrible, it's fine.
And then there was it was broadcast live on television, on national television. Here they're bringing the honor guard is bringing the casket down the aisle with the draped with an American flag, because George H.W. Bush had been a veteran, and everybody's got their hand over their hearts as he goes by with the flag, except Trump. And if Barack Obama had done that,
oh wow,
there would have been hell to pay.
Yep.
With all these faux, these hypocrites.
They lost their minds when he wore a tan suit.
And he didn't wear a flag pin.
And
they were, the tan suit thing. And I thought he looked good.
I thought he looked really good.
Well, there are gay people on Facebook that I was reading this morning who are highly upset that we are criticizing the president for not reading or saying the Apostles' Creed. And to me, that's just like gay Republicans. You know, I just don't see it. I don't get it.
Yeah,
I don't understand
I don't understand it either.
You know, I remember this when I was working in West Texas, and I went to my first, I had been working in a pediatric unit, and we lost a kid. This little kid died of a long-term illness, and we were all, the entire staff was very attached to this kid and her parents, and so we went to the funeral as, you know, people who care go. And she happened to be Catholic, and I didn't know the first thing about doing anything in a Catholic church, and so I asked a friend of mine who was Catholic what to do. And I said, I want to be respectful. And they said, well, just follow my lead. When we kneel, you kneel. When we stand, you stand. And when we sit, you sit. And you don't have to say anything. You know, if there's recitation of any verses or stuff, you don't have to do that at all. Just, you can stay silent. But if you could do those things, like don't stand up when we're kneeling. And, you know what I mean? Because that will just be distracting in the service. And that's exactly what I did. I got there, and every time we kneeled, I knelt. You know, and that's what you do when you go to someone else's funeral. Right. If you respect them in the least, you don't call attention to yourself by standing while everybody else is kneeling.
Well, apparently insiders in the White House said he was going nuts this week because the news wasn't about him.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me in the least.
So one of the best things I can say about George H.W. Bush was, thank you for a week's reprieve.
Well, I know we don't have a lot of time left, but I just wanted to maybe get some comments on George H.W. Bush. Do you think, you know, all the eulogies, have they been too kind on him, and especially in regards to our community?
They may have been. I was all for being respectful. He was president of the United States, and I think, and he did do many good things, but he also had a really, really crappy record on our community. He, you know, the whole Iran-Contra thing, there were some bad things about George H.W. Bush. Right. But I've chosen...
You know, here's what I'd say, and how I think history in our community will probably look at him. I think it'll be better than it looked like at the time. Two pieces of legislation passed during his administration, the Ryan White Care Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act. Now, the White House certainly was not responsible for getting those pushed through Congress. But the White House did sign those, and I doubt that the current White House would have. Ryan White especially was always underfunded during the Bush administration in the budget that he sent to Congress. Congress added to it, and he did sign it. So there was a working together. The White House, I'm saying, didn't push those through. Maybe the White House didn't need to push those through at the time, although something controversial as it was at the time, like Ryan White, wouldn't have hurt if the president had weighed in on those. Americans with Disabilities Act, you know, who was responsible for getting people with AIDS included in that act?
Glenn Maxey.
Was Glenn Maxey, yeah, who former state rep here. He said that was the only time he was ever invited to the White House.
And he knew three presidents. None of them invited him to the White House, except George H.W. Bush for the signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act for his work on getting people with HIV/AIDS included in the ADA. And that ADA, I tell you what, has changed the lives of so many people in our country, not necessarily LGBT people exclusively, but everybody. You know, the ramps, the doorways, the accessibility that people have, the reasonable accommodation to maintain a job and independence when you have a disability that before that you couldn't even get into the building. You know, where you couldn't even get there, much less be able to do the job. I think it's been transformative for our country, and I think it's been one of the strongest pieces of legislation we still have today from that era.
And you know something, when it comes right down to it, the president who is in office at the time does get credit and blame for whatever passed, for what doesn't pass. So, you know, would those have been signed with the current White House? I doubt it. So, you know, all of our current AIDS agencies, if it wasn't for Ryan White, we wouldn't have a resource center, we wouldn't have Prison Health, we wouldn't have AIDS Services Dallas, period. So but at the time, of course, we didn't know what long, far-reaching help those would be. You know, we knew that Ryan White was good. We knew that finally we're sending some money for services. But boy, over the years, looking back on it, it transformed people's lives. You know, and when I say that, I was just talking to Don Mason the other day. Because of Ryan White, it meant the difference between people dying homeless and starving from HIV and having a place to live.
With dignity.
With dignity, a nice place to live out their lives and have food. So, I mean, that's the difference. So, historically, can I look back on George H.W. and not be angry with him? Yeah, I really can. And I get everything that you're saying. And when he first died, and I hadn't thought about these things, it was a complete, okay, you know, in respect, keep your mouth shut. But looking at it, I'm not angry at him now.
And
So,
I think, you know,
Time heals, I guess.
you know, to come back to sort of our community and our aging, he matched what happens with a lot of couples across the country who are older.
Mm-hmm.
He lost his wife in April. He lost his spouse in April, and he wasn't able to make it too long without being together again. And I think that happens with a lot of, especially men, but it happens in our community. A lot of people lose their spouse, and they're already older. They spend decades and decades and decades together, and you lose one in the couple. And the second one doesn't always do well. So it's a joy to see when people do, of course. But I think it's an issue of being older and being close in your relationship. You know, and he's what, 94? We could all dream of being 94.
Right.
You know, I've talked to my aunt quite a bit. My cousin Suzanne, who was here as a guest on our show one time, her mother, we asked her, how do you get along without Milt? Because they were married 65 years. And she says, you know, sometimes I'll just be in one room reading, and I just imagine him being in the other room like we normally would do. So, and I know I've done that with Brian sometimes, that, you know, how do you get along? Well, I'm at work. Brian's just home. Yeah. You know, that kind of thing. It just kind of, it is a coping mechanism that I think gets more and more difficult the longer that you're together. So. It is very difficult, but bringing it back around to me. Because that's why you're here. That is one reason that I believe Silver Pride Project is so important, because when things like that do happen, we need some place other than bars where we can meet new friends, meet new people, find people that support us, and it may not touch your life, but there are people out there that do need some place where they can have be in a safe environment and meet people and interact with people. And so all I want to say is look forward to the great things that we will bring to the city of Dallas. It will happen. Oh, and come to Adam Madrano's Christmas party Tuesday at the Bomb Factory. We are going to have tables for Silver Pride Project and the LGBT community set up with rainbow flags, and we're going to have a good time.
Awesome.
That's really awesome. And that's a great annual event.
Yes, it is. He is one of the few city leaders that really welcome elders of the community.
That's wonderful.
That's really awesome.
Because he's old.
Well, not so much that he's old. It's just that he's very fair-minded.
So, we are just about out of time. Portia, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks so
Thank you,
much for
Portia.
being
Happy
here.
holidays.
Thank you for having me.
And next week, Jessica Gonzalez was out of town this weekend, which is why she couldn't be with us this week. She'll be with us next week. And for all of us here at Lambda Weekly, be best.
This is William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like, follow, or subscribe to us and get notices of all our videos. We love it. even when you call.